Hello everyone, my name is Don from Keep and Bear LLC, and today we're going to talk about how to clear a firearm. There's many different firearms on the market, but they all kind of work under the same premise that a round of ammunition is chambered, which means it's in the firing chamber of the gun, waiting for the user to pull the trigger to be able to go off. And we want to clear the gun of any ammunition, as well as clear that chamber out so that there's no ammunition left in the firearm. So today we're going to talk about revolvers simply because they're easiest to understand. Then we're going to talk about semi-automatic pistols, and finally we're going to talk about like an AR-15 type rifle. There are other firearms on the market with different actions. For instance, there's pump action rifles and shotguns, there's lever actions, there's bolt actions, there's breech open, there's many, many more, which is kind of a long topic that would take quite some time. But the most common ones you're going to see are revolvers and semi-automatics. So that's what we're going to focus on primarily for this video.
When we talk about clearing a firearm, we're talking about removing the ammunition from the firearm such that it can no longer shoot. To do that, we need to understand what the ammunition is. A single unit of ammunition is called a cartridge or a round. We want to avoid the term bullets because those are actually the projectiles that are shot out of the firearm. Additionally, a unit of ammunition includes a casing, which is what holds the gunpowder charge that allows the firearm to discharge. When we're at the range shooting, the bullets are what goes out of the end of the gun, and we can look at the holes they make in our paper target, but we typically will not be recovering the bullets. Near where our shooting station was, the area will typically have casings laying around. These are ejected from the side of the firearm in most cases.
Now that we understand that to clear a firearm, we are removing ammunition from the weapon, we need to understand a little bit of the anatomy of a firearm. To talk about this first, we're going to talk about a chamber. A chamber is a portion of the firearm that holds one round of ammunition and is reinforced so that when that round goes off, the pressure that is generated doesn't damage the firearm. We're going to look at revolvers first because in the case of revolvers, they're a little bit easier to understand. So in a revolver, you have a cylinder which comes out, as you can see here, which contains the chambers that are used to hold the ammunition. Now, some people think revolvers are old school, but they're really not. There's still a lot of modern use cases for the revolver. Now, in this case, ammunition would be placed in here. It'd be placed in here a round at a time, and it would go all the way around. And the firearm would be live when this chamber, or when the cylinder is closed, and this thing is essentially fully loaded, or really just loaded with one. To clear this firearm, we are going to open the cylinder up, and we are going to use this extraction rod right here to push back, and that's going to cause these shell casings to come out. If these were expended, they wouldn't be hanging up like this. They would be coming straight out and holding straight out. So we're just going to remove these. We're going to check that all of the chambers are open, and they are. And at that point, we know this firearm is cleared. For a semi-automatic pistol, it's a little bit harder to clear it, but once you understand it, it's relatively easy. So this is what the firearm looks like, and you can see through the top here this large port. This is called an ejection port, but it's also the way that you inspect and access the insides of the firearm. Now, instead of 6 rounds in the cylinder like on the revolver, the ammunition on a semi-automatic is stored in a detachable magazine, as you can see right here. And that is typically in the firearm. Now, to clear a semi-automatic firearm, what we want to do is first we want to eject the magazine. That way, any action we do on the firearm is not loading a round of ammunition from the magazine into the firearm. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of set that aside. The next thing we're going to do is pull back on the slide, and as we can see, there was a round in the chamber, and it is kind of escaped through the magazine well, and it's out of there. And we want to lock the slide back. There's a little button here called a slide lock lever. We're going to push the slide back. We're going to push up on that lever, and that's going to hold the magazine open. Or I'm sorry, the slide open. From there, we inspect by looking up into the chamber here. We can see that there's no round chambered in the chamber inside there. We can look and see that the magazine is empty. There's no round here at all. Therefore, this firearm is clear. Traditionally, we will leave it open like this when like we're at the range or something like that. That way, anyone who is around, like let's say you're showing a firearm off to someone and giving them a chance to shoot it, they can pick this up and immediately ascertain the status of this firearm and see that it's not loaded, and they know what they have to do. It's also safest to leave this laying this way. It's unloaded and unchambered and perfectly safe. The last firearm we're going to talk about today is the AR-15 rifle. The AR-15 is a light rifle. It actually does not shoot an incredibly powerful round. It's obviously adequate for self-defense, but it's not like going to be used against elephants or anything like that. Kind of looks intimidating, but it really isn't. The mechanics of the AR-15 rifle, as far as clearing it, are fairly similar to a semi-automatic pistol. We have a magazine, which we've seen on the semi-automatic pistol. We have a magazine release button right here. And we have the chamber, which is this area right up in here. Turning it over, on this particular one, I have an ambidextrous magazine release because I am left-handed. And instead of holding the slide open like on a semi-automatic pistol, this is a bolt catch, and that's going to hold the bolt open. The bolt is this part that we see right here. It's what basically puts a round in the chamber and is what cycles when the firearm goes off. So we're going to talk about how to clear such a firearm, and the steps are very similar to a semi-automatic pistol. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to detach the magazine, and you can see the dummy rounds in here just for example purposes right there. And we're going to set the magazine aside. By detaching the magazine, we ensure that subsequent clearing steps don't accidentally or unintentionally reload a firearm off of the magazine. So what we're going to do now is look at clearing this guy, and if you look right here, you can see that the bolt is closed, and there may or may not be round chambered. There is in this case. This is a bolt carrier back here, and we're going to pull this, and that is going to pull back, and we're going to see this magazine eject. And you can kind of see it fly away there, and the bolt is going to close back up. Now, it's actually very hard to do this one-handed and or really two-handed with a camera in the way. But what we got to do is we've got to hold this bolt back, and then we've got to push that button over here to keep that bolt held back. So I'm going to do that there. I'm going to let the bolt go forward a little bit, the lever over here. And we can see now that we have the firearm with the bolt open. We can look up in there. We can see that there is no round in there. It's actually quite a bit deeper up in there than a handgun is, a little bit harder to see. There is nothing wrong with putting a pinky in there and inspecting. Just be careful. We can look down into it and we can see that the magazine well is empty. Therefore, there's no chance of a round stripping off of the magazine and then going back up into the chamber. If we were taking a class or we were at the range with our friends, we would leave the firearm open and in this status right here so that people walking by can see that the firearm is safe. And that's really all there is to this guy. It's intimidating a little bit at first. There's a lot of little levers and buttons and everything else on it at first, but once you understand the mechanics of it, it's pretty straightforward.